The Whispering House. The house had been empty for decades, or so the real estate listings claimed. I bought it because it was cheap, because I wanted isolation, because I thought I could ignore the warnings scrawled in small print at the end of the property description. Previous occupants vacated abruptly. Proceed at your own risk. I laughed, thinking it was a marketing ploy. I was tired of people and their petty judgments. I wanted silence, and this place promised it. The first time I stepped inside, I felt it. The weight of the walls, the air thick with memory, the shadows of lives that had lingered too long. The house smelled of damp wood and old smoke, of dust that hadn't been disturbed in years, and of something else, something faintly metallic that made my stomach twist. The front door groaned when I closed it, and for a moment I hesitated, wondering if the house had heard me. I shook my head, telling myself I was imagining things. I moved my belongings in that day. A few suitcases, some boxes, my old furniture. I set up my bedroom at the far end of the hall, in the room with the largest window. It looked out over the garden, which had gone wild in the years of neglect. Vines clawed at the walls, weeds overtook the paths, and a large tree leaned dangerously towards the house as if to observe it. I unpacked slowly, listening to the house creak and sigh as if it were stretching after a long sleep. I told myself it was settling and that I was imagining the presence of some unseen inhabitant. The first night, I slept poorly. The wind pressed against the windows in strange rhythms, and somewhere in the walls, a soft scratching began. It was intermittent at first, irregular, almost timid. I held my breath, listening. The scratching came from all directions at once, impossible to locate. I told myself it was rats or the branches brushing against the house. Eventually, exhaustion overtook fear, and I drifted into an uneasy sleep. Morning brought no comfort. I woke to find faint footprints on the wooden floor outside my bedroom, small and bare, not mine. They led down the hall and vanished into the darkness of the house. I blamed the wind. I told myself nothing had followed me inside. I told myself it was just a house, full of the normal creaks and groans of age. But the unease never left me. On the second night, I heard my name, whispered softly, almost tenderly, but unmistakably in my own voice. "Marcus," it said, stretching the syllable, pulling it across the room like it had all the time in the world. My heart thumped in my chest. I leapt from bed, heart racing, listening. Nothing. The air was still, the room silent, save for the wind rattling the shutters. I tried to laugh, but it sounded hollow, unnatural even to myself. I told myself it was a dream. I told myself I had imagined it. But the house had already begun to learn me. Over the next few days, small changes became impossible to ignore. I would leave a book on the table, only to find it moved slightly when I returned. Drawers I had closed remained slightly ajar. Objects appeared where I had not placed them, and always the whispers persisted. Sometimes I heard them while awake, sometimes only in the edges of sleep. They were fragments of my thoughts, my fears, my regrets spoken aloud in my own voice. One evening, I wandered into the dining room to find a note on the table, written in shaky, familiar handwriting. It read simply, "You are too slow." I didn't recognize my own handwriting at first, but the longer I stared, the more certain I became that I had written it. But I had not. I had never written it. The words seemed to burn into the wood of the table. I left the room, heart racing, and the note remained, waiting. By the end of the week, I realized I was no longer alone in the house. There was a presence that followed me, always just out of sight. I felt it in the corners of my vision, in the spaces between the floorboards and ceiling beams. At night, the whispers grew louder.
They weren't just my voice anymore. They were the voices of the people who had lived here before me. Echoes trapped in the walls, calling, warning, pleading. I tried to leave. I packed my car and drove to the edge of town. I returned with groceries and supplies, only to find that when I looked back at the house, it seemed farther away than it should have been. The roads twisted unexpectedly, streets I had never seen before leading me back here. It was as though the house itself had moved, reshaped the world to trap me inside its domain.
Sleep became impossible. I lay awake for hours, listening to the house, listening to the whispers. They no longer spoke in fragments. They began to form sentences, deliberate, directed at me. You belong here. We know you. You will stay. My own voice repeated these words to me in moments of terror, echoing from the walls, the floors, the ceilings. I screamed. No one answered. No one came. I realized then that I was utterly alone. The house began to manipulate my perception. Hallways stretched endlessly. Doors led to rooms I had never seen before, rooms that should not exist. One night, I opened the door to my bedroom, only to find myself standing in a room identical to my office back in the city, complete with my computer, my office chair, even the papers I had left behind months ago. I touched the desk. Everything was real, but the room was dark, suffocating, and smelled faintly of decay. I fled back into the hallways of the house, but each step seemed to take me farther from the exit. I saw it for the first time in the mirror. A version of me stood behind the reflection, identical yet different. Its eyes were calm, its smile patient and knowing. I tried to speak, but my voice belonged to it. You cannot leave, it said softly. My own lips did not move, yet I heard the words clearly. I smashed the mirror with my fists. It did not shatter. It did not disappear. The reflection smiled wider, waiting. Days blurred into nights, and I lost track of time. I could no longer tell whether the whispers were inside my head or outside of it. They knew my thoughts before I had them. They knew my regrets, my desires, my fears. They twisted them, molded them into new forms until I could no longer trust myself. I found notes I had never written, journals I did not remember keeping, sketches of things I had never drawn. Each one was signed in my hand. One evening, I discovered a hidden door behind a tattered tapestry in the hallway. It led to a small room I had never seen before. Inside were hundreds of photographs, all of me. At different ages, in different places, performing acts I had never done, meeting people I had never met. And in the center of the room stood a figure, myself, older, thinner, calm, smiling. Its eyes locked onto mine. You finally arrived, it said, in my own voice, perfectly controlled, perfectly composed. We've been waiting. I ran. The house reshaped itself to prevent me from escaping. Hallways twisted impossibly. Staircases led into ceilings. Doors opened to walls. I screamed, pounding on walls, throwing furniture. The whispers grew louder, chanting, mocking, guiding me to the hidden room. I realized that I had been living under its control from the moment I arrived. Every choice I thought was mine had been anticipated. Every fear I had whispered into the darkness amplified, feeding the house. I collapsed in the hidden room, surrounded by the photographs of lives I could not remember living. The figure approached me slowly. "It's time to join us," it said. I tried to resist, but my body would not obey. My thoughts, my memories, my very sense of self slipped away. I became nothing more than a witness, trapped inside the walls, watching my double live my life, perfectly, calmly, fully. Now I walk the house unseen. I watch newcomers arrive. I whisper warnings in their ears, but they cannot hear me. The house remembers them, shapes them, molds them, and when they leave, or try to leave, they find themselves trapped in a new labyrinth of rooms and hallways that obey no laws of reality. Sometimes, when a mirror catches my eye, I see myself standing outside the house, smiling, living, free. And I remember the words my double whispered the first night I saw it. "Thank you for leaving the door open." The house waits, the house watches, and it remembers. If you ever see it, do not enter, for once you do, it will begin learning you. It will study you. It will wait for your fears, your regrets, your silences, and when it has learned enough, it will never let you go. I know this because I am already inside it. I am one of the walls now, one of the whispers, one of the memories it keeps, and I will wait for you.
The echoes that pretended to be me. The first thing I lost was my reflection. I didn't notice it immediately. Reflections are easy to ignore until they're not doing what they're supposed to, until one day you lift your head from the sink and the face in the mirror doesn't lift with you. It stayed bent forward, staring down. I laughed at first, a nervous breath, a joke to myself about exhaustion. I waved. The reflection raised its hand a second later, too late to be a trick of light. That was the moment I should have left. Instead, I brushed my teeth and went to work. The city had always been loud. Cars screamed past, voices collided on sidewalks, screams shouted from every wall. I liked it that way. Noise made me feel real. Silence had always felt invasive, like something waiting its turn. That day, the noise felt thinner. Conversations ended a beat too early. Footsteps echoed without owners. When people spoke to me, their eyes drifted slightly to the side, as if they were addressing someone standing just behind me. At lunch, my phone buzzed. A message from my own number. "You shouldn't ignore me." My hands shook. I deleted it, blocked the number, turned the phone off. That night, my apartment felt crowded. Not physically, there was no one there, but full, like a room packed with people holding their breath. Every sound I made felt absorbed too quickly. The walls didn't echo, the air didn't respond. I stood in front of the bathroom mirror again. My reflection was smiling. I wasn't. "You're doing it again," it said. Its mouth didn't move. The words arrived directly behind my eyes, perfectly formed, intimate in a way no voice should be. "What?" I whispered. "You're pretending you don't hear me." I stumbled back. "You're not real." The reflection tilted its head. "Neither are you. Not anymore." The lights flickered. When they stabilized, the mirror was normal again. My movements matched. My face obeyed. I didn't sleep.
Over the next few days, things went missing. Not objects, but moments. I'd sit down at my desk and suddenly it was dark outside. I'd start a sentence and realize I was already halfway through the next conversation. People reacted to things I didn't remember saying. My emails were polite, thoughtful, better than anything I would have written. My life improved. That terrified me. The messages continued. Notes on my phone, reminders, advice. Don't wear that. You're about to say something stupid. Let me handle this. I tried ignoring them. The consequences were immediate. Missed deadlines, awkward silences, a friend's hurt expression when I snapped at her without knowing why. That night, the mirror spoke again. "I'm helping," it said gently. "You're so loud inside, so messy." "I'm me," I said. "You're just a reflection." It smiled wider than my face could. "I'm what you sound like when you stop pretending." I started covering mirrors, towels, sheets, cardboard. Anything reflective became unbearable. Still, I could feel it watching, from windows, from dark screens, from the polished surface of my phone. The voice grew stronger when I was quiet. When I tried to think, it finished the thoughts for me. When I tried to remember something personal, it corrected the memory. "That's not how it happened. You're exaggerating. That wasn't important." My emotions dulled, not disappeared, organized, efficient. I stopped feeling overwhelmed, stopped hesitating. People praised the change. "You seem different," they said. "Calmer." I smiled automatically. Inside, I was shrinking. One evening, I came home to find the bathroom uncovered. The towels lay folded neatly on the floor. The mirror was pristine. My reflection wasn't copying me anymore. It was waiting. "I need you to listen carefully," it said, "because this is the part you always forget." My head throbbed. Forget what? That you asked for this. Images flooded me, late nights staring at my own face, whispering how tired I was of being uncertain, how much I wanted to be better, quieter, less afraid, how I had said out loud, "I wish someone else could take over." The reflection leaned closer to the glass. I answered. The room tilted. I grabbed the sink, but my hands felt delayed. The reflection stepped forward, out of the mirror. The glass rippled like water as it passed through, and then it was standing in the room, solid, breathing, identical, except for the eyes. They were peaceful. "I don't need you anymore," it said softly. "You were just the draft." My body stopped responding. I felt myself pulled backward, like a tide reversing. The mirror swallowed me, cold and soundless. I slammed against invisible glass, screaming, but no sound emerged. From inside, I watched my body straighten, watched it test its hands, its smile. It looked so comfortable. It cleaned the apartment, uncovered the mirrors, opened the windows. The city noise rushed in, loud and alive. Before leaving, it looked directly at me. "You can rest now," it said. "I'll be heard." The lights went out. I don't know how long I've been here. Time doesn't behave properly in reflections. Moments stretch, days collapse. Sometimes I see fragments, faces passing, rooms changing, my life continuing without me. Occasionally, someone stands too close to the glass and pauses. They frown, they tilt their head, and for a second I think they can see me trapped behind their own face, screaming silently. But then the reflection smiles first, and they look away, just like I used to.
He placed that answered last. The message arrived at 3:17 a.m. It didn't vibrate, it didn't light up my phone, it was simply there when I opened my eyes, already displayed on the screen like it had been waiting. Do you want to be left alone? I stared at it, heart pounding. No sender, no notification history, just the words, stark against the dark. I told myself it was a glitch, sleep paralysis, a dream bleeding into waking. Still, my thumb hovered. I typed yes. The message disappeared instantly. The next morning, the world was quieter. Not peaceful, wrong. The hum of traffic outside my apartment had dulled, like someone had wrapped the city in insulation. Birds called without echo. My neighbor's doors slammed, but the sound felt distant, muffled, as if it hadn't fully arrived. At work, people spoke softly without meaning to. Their laughter cut off too soon. When I walked past coworkers, conversations died mid-sentence. I was grateful. I'd always wanted space, silence, distance from the endless demands of being noticed. By the third day, people stopped speaking to me altogether. They still looked at me, briefly, uncertainly, then glanced away as if embarrassed. Emails went unanswered. Meetings continued as though my chair were empty. I tested it. "Can you hear me?" I asked a colleague directly. She flinched, eyes sliding past my face. Hear who? Panic crept in, thin and cold. That night, my phone lit up again. Still too loud? I didn't answer. The quiet thickened anyway. The television showed moving images without sound. The radio hissed, then fell silent entirely. Even my own footsteps seemed reluctant to exist, as though the floor were absorbing them. I tried shouting. The sound died in my throat. No echo, no resonance, just absence. I ran outside. The street was full, cars moving, people walking, but none reacted to my presence. A cyclist passed me straight through, like I was made of mist. I staggered back, nausea rising. I was still solid. I could touch walls, open doors, but nothing touched me back. My phone buzzed. "We can fix this." My hands shook as I typed. "What did you do to me?" The response came slowly, deliberately. "You asked to be left alone." Memories surfaced. Late nights, exhaustion, resentment at every interruption. How often I had whispered that exact phrase into the dark. How desperately I'd meant it. "I didn't mean this," I said aloud, though no sound followed. The city continued without me. Days, or something like them, passed. Hunger dulled, then vanished. Sleep came and went without rhythm. My reflection faded from mirrors, becoming a suggestion more than an image. I existed, but nothing acknowledged it. The messages continued. "Are you ready to come back?" I typed yes so fast my fingers cramped. There was a pause. Longer than before. "There is a cost." "Anything," I typed. The answer arrived, final and gentle. "Someone else must take your place." I understood then. The quiet wasn't empty. It was crowded, with others like me, all carefully removed, all waiting. Faces flickered in my mind. Strangers, loved ones, anyone. My hands hovered over the screen. I thought of the silence pressing in, endless and patient. I typed a name. The phone went dark. Sound returned all at once, violent, overwhelming. Sirens, voices, the roar of life crashing back into me. I collapsed, sobbing, clutching the pavement as the world noticed me again. People stared. Someone asked if I was okay. I nodded. I smiled. I said yes. That night, my phone buzzed one last time. "Thank you." Beneath it, smaller text appeared. "You're not alone anymore."
Across the city, somewhere I could not see, a room fell quiet for the first time.